And here in the U.S., some members of Congress are already using the higher oil prices to justify putting more money toward electric cars, green energy, you name it, they're talking about it.
And our next guest is here with us in studio, so that would be pretty much a big waste of taxpayer money. Robert Bryce is the author of Power Hungry, The Myths of Green Energy and the Real Fuels of the Future. He joins us now to tell us, well, I guess, what the real answer might be. Right, Robert?
Well, you know, what's interesting now in the oil markets, they are very nervous. And I've talked to some traders here in New York just last night, and they are now looking forward and trying to make sure that they're buying insurance effectively in case of higher prices in the future. But I think what the administration's situation right now is really incomprehensible. They are pushing to repeal some very relatively small tax preferences that would, by repealing them, discourage domestic oil and gas production. They are encouraging expanded use of food-based biofuels, which I find outrageous and honestly immoral.
Ethanol.
Ethanol in particular. And finally, they're talking about the fact that clean energy will dominate the U.S. economy within 2 decades.
Well, our cars don't run on solar and wind, as you pointed out.
Well, exactly. And right now, like it or not, and it will be the case for the next 2 to 3 decades at least, our transportation system runs on oil. And that's the key issue now. And with Libya and the shortage of light sweet crude on the market, that's what I think is really making the markets nervous and leading to the price increases.
No, but one thing that always astonishes me, because I remember years ago being at the New York Auto Show and seeing this lonely little car in the corner of the hall at the Javits Center, and it was a natural gas car.
Sure.
It was a Honda Civic that runs on natural gas, and you have some public transportation systems that use natural gas, energy source that's plentiful here in the U.S., and that's something that few people talk about and that little money is spent on, is it not?
Well, and this is what Boone Pickens has been talking about, particularly in the long-haul fleet. The problem is infrastructure, that we don't have a widespread infrastructure either for electric cars or for natural gas vehicle refueling. So the short answer here in terms of all these oil issues is there is no quick fix. But the reality is that, having said that, we need to be doing more domestic oil and gas production, and yet the administration has effectively stopped offshore drilling in the Deepwater Gulf.
Their goals are different than that, or some of the goals on the other side of this argument are different than that. So what do you think would happen to the economy if the crowd that's pushing, we had this discussion on our show last week, for $5 gasoline, essentially rooting for it? Tom Friedman has written about it in the New York Times. Our friend Araldo was in here last week making that argument as well, saying, hey, listen, we have to push for higher gas prices so that people will want to use alternative fuels. If that took place, what would happen to our economy?
Well, I think it would push us back into recession, and a lot of people, including me, are already worried about this. That this is the absolute worst time to be seeing an oil price spike because it reverberates through the entire economy. So we have to do what we can here in the U.S. to produce as much oil and gas as we can. And what's interesting, too, in the terms of these tax preferences, if they roll them back, it would have happened during a time when we're seeing a real renaissance in domestic oil production.
But you don't think it's a bad idea to talk about at least releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
No, I think that
because it definitely puts
Sure.
investors on edge and might keep some people from buying if they think the possibility is out there.
Look, there's a lot of psychology in the market now, and so if they release oil from the SPR, I think it could help at least cool some of the worry in the market. It won't make it go away altogether.
And for today, at least, things have calmed down a little bit in the oil market, which has been going crazy here the last few days. Robert Bryce, good to see you in
Thanks
person.
a million.
Thanks for
Great
coming
book.
in. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot.
Today's One Burning